Hi everyone, welcome to Bonnie Carolee Makes Cards. Today's video features a Stamptember exclusive by Simon Says Stamp, Slimline Scene Builder. What began as a set of 12 cards became 13. Because of technical issues, I ended up having to refilm the card making process. Although these cards were made in assembly line fashion, you will only see one card being made. For this set of cards, I'm using a printmaking technique, a fast and efficient way to make multiples. So let's get started. You will need a brayer, a surface to put your paint on. I'm using an acrylic plate, and a stamping platform does make this whole process a lot more efficient, but it isn't necessary. I began by cutting down several pieces of Nina Classic Crest 110 pound cardstock into pieces 3.5 inches by 8 inches. The large sky stamp was centered on the panel in my MISTI. I make sure that the small ground stamp will also fit on that panel. I place a couple of small amounts of distress paint on the acrylic plate and roll it with the brayer. To make sure the paint is evenly distributed on the roller, I first roll it off on a piece of copy paper. The paint is applied to the stamp, rolling back and forth, ensuring that there is good coverage. The amount of paint that is needed is like a thin layer of butter on bread. You do not want too much paint, otherwise you will lose the snow detail. For every couple of stampings, I change up the colors. The distress paints that I'm working with are Salty Ocean, Hickory Smoke, Twisted Citron, Peeled Paint, and Broken China. Using this technique, you will not get a solid stamping. There will be texture, and that texture will vary from panel to panel, making each card in the end unique. I also like the subtle color variations by using more than one color of paint. Every 2 or 3 stampings, I do clean my stamp off using a baby wipe. Leaving the paint on longer than this will result in a rigorous cleanup job. I use this as an opportunity to change up my colors. The ground stamp was lined up on the MISTI. For this stamping, I used a combination of antique linen and a little bit of spun sugar just to provide some nice variation. Using the printmaking technique, the backgrounds are done up very quickly. The 12 panels were complete in no time at all. I do want to mention that I did try a couple of other brands of acrylic paints, but I found that the distress paints were a little bit more fluid and gave me the results that I was looking for. I was happy to discover that the smallest plain die in Pink Fresh Studios stitched rectangles was perfect for cutting out this panel. Next, I stamped 2 small trees on either side of the small panel using Distress Oxide ink Hickory Smoke. All of the panels are stamped with the tree on the right side. The stamp is repositioned in the MISTI, and the other tree is stamped on all of the panels. The assembly line approach is very time efficient. The same approach is used for stamping the lights on the small trees. All of the backgrounds with the same color are stamped together. In this way, I can change up the light colors between the different backgrounds. Before moving on to the embossing, it is important that the Distress Oxide inks are completely dry. The large tree and the sentiment are positioned in the MISTI at the same time. The stamps are inked with Versamark and then heat embossed with white embossing powder. This is the final step to complete the panels, and now we are ready to move on to assembling the cards. The completed panels are mounted on foam. When working on the set of 12 cards, I found that 4 of the panels would fit on an 8x10 sheet. For the background, I used 2 of Pink Fresh Studios slim stitched rectangles to create a frame. The leftover stitched rectangle is going to be used in another project using this stamp set and dye inks. The frames were attached to glitter paper that were cut down to 3 5/8 by 8 3/8. The foam back panel was centered and attached to the middle of the frame panel. It was then adhered to a card base that measured 3 3/4 inches by 8 3/4 inches. I finish up by placing my card under the weight of my MISTI. I find that it takes a couple of minutes for the panels to adhere to the glitter paper. Printmaking is a time-efficient way of producing multiples of cards. I love the different variations of texture that are produced from card to card. Changing up the colors also adds to the uniqueness of each one. That wraps up this set of 13, should have been 12, Christmas cards featuring Simon Says Stamp's Slimline Scene Builder. As always, I appreciate your visit.